I think I was really blessed to have gone down a path, and I changed careers. I went from owning a business to owning a business and in real estate without employees. And I think the reality was I knew this business had high margins, right?
Yeah.
Compared to the business I was in where I was making 1.5% on my sales.
Sure.
Real estate just seems so much better as far as a money proposition. And I think what really hurt was the amount of time you invest into the business and the craft, and you just couldn't compete with the guys that were in the business for 15 years, 10 years. And I remember like looking in the I call it the tabloid, which was basically our local real estate magazine, and going, I can't wait the 15 years. Everything that was the common denominator in that whole magazine of success was duration, time, like experience. Like I couldn't compete with that. I didn't have the patience for that. I had about 3 years of cash flow to survive with my family from my business transaction, my sale, which is a total blessing. Yeah. But I'm like, okay, so, and I remember like sitting down with Marina. So if we invest 100 grand in marketing and I do 150 grand in real estate transactions, like, I know it's only a $50,000 a year, but for the first year, that makes a lot of sense. And that's essentially what we did. We went down this path of just investing heavy because nobody else would do that. Right. And I was blessed to have that because I was able to get a lot of transactions done early on in my career. Yeah. Had I tried to do it any other way, like it takes a long time to get off the ground.
What were the big guys doing at that time? The ones you were losing out to?
Oh my gosh.
What were they doing that you felt like was there?
You know, it's funny. I think now that I look back, it was kind of like that earlier conversation about the dad, right? They're going, oh, he'll learn. Right? Yeah. He'll learn. And I felt like I didn't know what I didn't know at the time. Yeah. And at the time I felt like I was being bullied. I felt like I didn't have an opportunity because we were moving from Redondo Beach up to Palos Verdes, and Palos Verdes is a tight group of maybe 5 agents that do 80% of the business. Right. And I wanted to be in that group, and they were doing everything in their power to shoulder me out. And it was because I was running a bigger marketing budget. So the perception to the consumer was threatening to them. Sure. And it created a friction that was really painful for us.
But what did they do to kind of keep you butted out?
I can't say with all confidence that they were backstabbing me.
It's very theory type stuff.
Yeah, there was definitely like
it's there. You can't prove it, but you know what happened.
Oh no, I could prove it.
Oh, you can prove it too.
Oh yeah, there's a lot of agents that would talk about how that person said this about me and how the perception is this and so forth. So I see myself doing it at times, like going, oh my God, why did that agent try to get that listing? Like no way do they have the qualifications that I do. And I'll flick some sort of, name drop or do something in a listing presentation that really disqualifies that person. Yeah. And that's unfair.
Yeah.
And
I get it. Now, speaking of being a new agent trying to break in the market, you kind of mentioned that new agents, the curve right now, the learning curve right now is very intense.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
So walk me through. So you guys can't even really work with new agents right now?
It's so hard. So we run a team and we consider ourselves, relatively successful because we don't have turnover. Teams have different formats on how they do things. And some of the teams that are out there, it's all about the magazine photo. Like how many people that are really good looking can stand behind me and I can be this big ego that, is running a real estate team. And that was not our agenda at all. Our agenda was taking what experience I had and what resources that we've put into the business as far as, managing transactions from a, preparation perspective, because my wife's this amazing designer, to the transaction element, because we got this a wonderful, operations gal. Her name's Amy. Yeah. And then we also have this, aspiring model / amazing gal in Lex that does all of our marketing for us, and she does everything. Right. And so how can a new agent compete with that? Like if I'm going against, representing a buyer where I've got all these resources available to me, or if I'm going against a seller and I got all these resources available to me, like a new agent's going to really struggle trying to make their business, strong. So that first few years is really a trying time. And I had mentioned I can't tell you how many times I look over at Marina right now, how many times I've come home and said, this is it. I can't do this business. It's just too painful to work really hard. Put your heart into relationships with people, trusting that they're going to pay you at some point when you're successfully placing them into a home, and they call you up and they say, oh, the reason why we couldn't meet you this weekend is because we're in escrow. The builder down the street put a sign up and we decided to buy directly with them because he gave us a discount. And like, there goes all the weekends that I spent with my, telling Marina, like, hey, sweetie, I can't make the soccer game because I'm showing these people a home. And they're really close. I got them pre-qualified. I got them, showed them a bunch of homes. I think we're really close, right?
Yeah.
Next weekend, same thing. I missed the lacrosse game. I missed this. And it's like, they call you up and they say, hey, we found something. Isn't that good for us? And the answer is, yeah. Like, I'm happy for you.
Sure.
But damn it, like, I didn't protect myself.
Right.
And that's really... like, you have to go through that experience of pain to really understand how you can provide a lot of value to your customer. So,
Right. No, totally. Dang.
it's so painful. I honestly, I can sit here and talk about so many scenarios that would just make me cry.
Yeah, totally. And you've been doing it for a while, so I'm sure.
Yes. And again, I think it's funny because, sometimes Marina and I get in these conversations and she'll say, like, well, you should have done this. You should have done a buyer's agency agreement. I'm like, no, that wasn't like, I put my heart on the table.
Yeah.
And I expected to have compensation for all the work that I did. And because either the naivety that they didn't know how the business works, or I just approached it with this nice guy attitude, I didn't assert myself.
Right.
And so some of those conversations can be super painful.
Right.
And the business has changed, and that's actually a good segue to the whole NAR thing right now.
Yeah.
Right?
No, absolutely.
Yeah.
What is going on with that?
Well, I mean, I think what people have to understand is that NAR is a lobbying group for the real estate industry.
Okay.
You need it, right? You need to have some platform where, people aren't fighting with each other all the time.
Yeah.
And they've been involved with some really critical things that help consumers. So they're really the agency between the real estate industry at the realtor level to the consumer, and the pro-consumer groups that are saying, hey, this isn't fair, and so forth. So what came about was the situation where in Missouri, some sellers came to the table and they brought up a class action suit and said, we as sellers didn't have an opportunity to negotiate our commissions that we're paying the buyer's agents.
Yeah.
And so they created a class, and the Missouri judge saw this as a likely problem and issued basically a judgment against the real estate industry, NAR and a handful of brands, Keller Williams, Remax, Berkshire Hathaway. And they said, you guys are liable for paying these sellers back the money that they didn't feel they were capable of negotiating.
Right.
So from a consumer perspective, like, it's very impactful, because the way it's going to be now is that you, as representing a buyer, now have to have that agency conversation and that value proposition that we were talking about earlier.
Yeah.
You have to have that conversation up front when you're showing property to buyers. And now the sellers will be signing a contract that says, here's the contract to sell your home, but as far as what I'm going to pay the buyer's agent, like, that's a different conversation that the buyer's agent is going to bring to the table once you're negotiating to sell the home. At the end of the day, we're still talking about selling homes. The property values didn't go down because this, 3% got skimmed off the table.
Sure.
We're still selling homes to the highest possible net number for the seller.
Yeah.
So when that conversation is brought forward and you look at how the real estate industry basically does 95% of all the transactions, other ones are trust transfers and so forth, like, you still have to have an advocate that helps you through a very complicated process.
Right. And I think that's the problem. I think it gets confusing there, because now, and let me know if this is not the right way, but now, say I'm a selling agent.
Yep.
I come to the buying agent. Hey, what are you going to pay the selling agent? Oh, 1.5%. See ya.
Well, I think that's where, like, the advocacy of my business is really powerful.
Sure.
And I think that's where some of the younger agents or people with less experience, I should perhaps say, are going to be really challenged, because how do you put that value forward? Where, when it's a seller, my obligation to the seller is to try to get as many people to see that home as possible.
Right. By
not paying the compensation that is expected of a real estate buyer's agent, we're simply reducing the amount of people that are going to be seeing your
100%.
home. Like, I'm doing a disservice to you. So are we going to drive your $1 million home price at $1 million, or we're going to be ended up at 950, or we're going to drive it up to $1,020,000. That's my job. And I don't want to cut off any opportunity for a buyer to not show that home.
Right.
So I will argue on behalf of the seller to say, let's not focus on how much you're paying an agent that may or may not be wearing a miniskirt and doing this deal. Like, in, you know, whatever your perception is of our industry, they have their relationship. My relationship was with you, and my point to you as a seller is make sure that you don't cut off. You don't cut off your nose.
But my thought is, now it brings up the question to the seller, well, how much is 2.5% on $1 million? Totally. And that's not a good thing, for the reason that I work with enough agents to know that sellers will fight you on staging. They don't want to pay the extra money. Yep. They'll fight you on not overpricing. They're scared to underprice, even though you know it's in their best interest. Yep. Now you got another thing to fight them on. Yeah. I just don't, I am optimistic. I know it'll work out, but I do get nervous because people are in general, when it comes to things like this, people are, for lack of a better word, selfish. They want to get the most they can for themselves, even if they can't trust a trusted professional to do the job. So I think it's just kind of scary in that regard. Yeah. But I do think it also just gives the selling agent, like, it gives them a little power. Be like, oh, you're not paying it, I'll see you later. Like, just like, it's going to hurt the sellers to not do it, but it will happen regardless. Yeah. I mean, that's going to shake out. Like, we're going to find out. Like, I know in my little silo that I operate in, like, the clients and the relationships that I have respect my professionalism. 100%. Like, obviously having a bunch of these transactions behind me is very helpful. Yeah. And I think that's where our advocacy really plays forward. Like, you know, the example I like to use is like a wealth manager. Sure. So if you're a wealth manager, and I think everybody, depending on where they are in their path, like, you know, you just started getting some extra money from your paycheck and you're going to invest it, and you decide to go to E-Trade because you heard about this really cool stock, Tesla, and start buying stock, right? Or you're a type of guy that says, you know what, this is not my place. I should probably just pay the little fee that the mutual fund offers, and I'll put my money over there and let them kind of bulk manage it, right? I'll just be part of that party. Right. Or there's the people that at a certain point recognize that that's not their experience, that's not their profession, and yet there's people out there that are really good at what they do, and I'm willing to pay that premium because I'm not going to focus on what he's making and what car he's driving. I'm going to focus on what's in it for me, right? And the comfort level and the risk level that I've reduced in my life, and I'm going to give it to somebody that knows how to manage money. Exactly. It's risk mitigation. Risk mitigation. I see when it comes to real estate, and, you know, I've been around a few transactions that, you know, a seller doesn't disclose things, you know, or and you have the wrong inspector, and inspector's out for his own hide. He's from out of the area. Like, there's so many things that can go astray. Like, I completely see it as the most inexpensive insurance policy you can buy for the purchasing of a huge asset like your home that you plan to live in. So the insurance policy being the percentage of the guidance of a professional that's done several transactions that can help you get the right contractor in the door, the right inspector through the door, even the right attorney if you have a question about something when it relates to taxes or financing. And like, there's so much that goes into our business that I can't monetize on an hourly basis, which is why the industry is what it is. Right. Like, you couldn't. I mean, there is such thing in the legal world where they only get paid when they, you know, sue and are successful, but that's a 30% commission. Right. And, like, you know, that's a crapshoot. You don't know if you're going to win because you don't know if it's going to be a jury or a judge or anything else. So why not just, hey, it's, as long as they ask for more money, then, you know, I'll take 60% of what I'm supposed to make on my, you know, lawsuit. Yeah. Well, in real estate, you don't have that option. Like, it's either you get a house or you don't. And, you know, from my perspective, like, if you want a house and you don't hire somebody that knows the area that you're looking or knows how to help guide you to that location, like, you're buying, asking for a lot of problems. Stocks, right? You're buying stocks blindly buying stocks. And you know what? For a lot of people, it works, but that's a different place, and that's probably not where my clients are going to be. And again, there's certainly people that buy homes. There's certain people that go to open houses, and there's agents that work with those people. And to me, that's the biggest heartache in this business. Yeah. And I just won't work with them. Like, not to be cocky, but I value my time, and my level of experience is such that it's so valuable to the people that are willing to pay it that I don't care to try to distribute it down to a lower margin, right? 100%. No, I think you're 100% right. I tend to be a big fan of, like,
pay for the problem. Yeah. So like I have no issues if I sold this, would just be like part of the game. I'm not going to stress. Yeah. But I just know people can be a little bit.
Totally. They unwire the process.
It's just another question to ask that makes the process harder, which is why I'm like, this is so dumb. Yeah. I saw a meme of, you know, the Zach Galifianakis meme where he's the Hangover and he's at the craps table and you see all the numbers. It was like the NAR trying to convince people to pay their NAR fees. And it was like seriously though, what, like, did they not go to bat for the agents, or was it
oh my gosh, it's, you know, I've never been a big fan of the NAR.
Yeah.
Because it's an obligatory thing, right? Yeah. If I want access to the MLS locally, I have to be a member of a lobbyist group. Now, my old industry, I was a member of a lobbyist group, and I sat in Washington, D.C. with some senators and talking about advocacy for the satellite television industry. And I saw how disgusting the world of politics are.
Yeah.
I want nothing to do with it. As a matter of fact, I was flying home with the CEO of DirecTV in the day in his private jet, or in the company's private jet. And I remember looking at him and going, dude, like, I can't do this. He starts laughing. He's like, yeah, it's not for the faint at heart.
Yeah.
He's like, if you don't know how to grease the wheels in Washington, D.C., like, you know, it's painful. So anyway, so I've always had this hard, like, line about what an advocacy group like the NAR is. But at the same time, I do believe in a governing body that keeps agents on track within the boundaries of efficacy and practicing our business. So it's wonderful from that regard. And had we not had this National Association of Realtors, who knows what cowboys would be flying out there with guns slinging in the real estate world, and a lot of shady shit would happen. I guarantee it. So I'm, you know, I've got this love-hate relationship with them. And the fact that they lost this lawsuit was just kind of an icing on the cake of a lot of other troubles they had in management at the time. And, you know, we just kept seeing it come across our desk about, hey, we got a new president. We got this sex scandal. We got this. And it's like, you know, we pay thousands of dollars per year to be a membership group, and they own this big, beautiful building in Chicago, a beautiful building in Washington, D.C. And like, is this really going to my business? Is it going to the consumer that we're trying to protect? And the answer is yes, but it's like the government these days. Who wants to pay high taxes for, you know, paying $100,000 a year for one homeless guy? So we're really kind of troubled right now, the industry. And I think nothing but good can come of it.
Sure.
So I'm embracing it, but at the same time, I'm not going to operate in this world of fear, or, you know, I'm going to operate in my silo and just do good by my customers. And I think that's the best way to approach this.
Yeah. Well, that's the number one thing I'm seeing right now. And I obviously create content for real estate agents, and I'm doing the sales, and everyone's like, well, the NAR lawsuit. I'm like, I'm more scared than ever. It's like, well, this would be the time to market, because you're going to need a lot more eyes than ever. And there's going to be market share to take. So why don't you go for it? Can't seem to break through though.
I love it. We buy the most advertising when the magazine, we have a local circulation in South Bay, and I can see when that book goes from, you know, half-inch thick to a quarter-inch thick, and that's when Marina starts buying.
It's a smart thing to do.
You got to lean in. When the times are tough, you lean in, and I'm really proud of the way we do things that way.
When everyone's confident is the time to be fearful. When everyone's fearful, it's the time to be confident.
Yep.
Yeah.
Swim against the tide. That's
absolutely.
For sure. Yeah.
No, it's crazy. The NAR stuff's crazy, and I'm curious, and I'm very interested to see. But we were talking a bit before this about how when things like this in the market happen, it's time for innovation. What innovations do you see? Well, what was the last one? Because you were talking to me about Zillow. What was the last one?
Well, the Zillow thing, I think, is, you know, if you look at the history of NAR, which has been, you know, oh gosh, it's probably close to 50 years now they've been around. And the things that they've done that's been very pro-consumer, as it's, you know, whether it's the discrimination laws, whether it's lending laws, you know, helping veterans and first-time home buyers get credits through Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac. Like, they've done some really great things to help the consumer.
Right.
And as an industry, you want to hold on to things so people are, you know, it's like, you know, it's like the Dodgers right now. Like, you just got this unlimited budget to get these great players, and we're beating everybody up. Like, if you're in a trade group, you kind of want that same feeling. You want, like, the path to be a little bit easier to make the wins.
Yes.
And so I think you mentioned like some other things that have happened. Like I think another big mistake that they made was, and I can't say it's a mistake because I was not at the deal table, but ultimately the consumer groups were after the information that us realtors owned and created. So when we take a listing, we consider ourselves the originator of the information. So 123 Main Street, it's 3 bedrooms, 2 baths, it's $1 million. It sells for this price. And that data is valuable to our industry to hold on to. Well, the FTC came in and said, you guys, if you really want to continue doing this, you're going to have to allow that to be syndicated out. So these third-party companies, Zillow, Trulia, they all came out of the woodwork to create this information channel for the consumer. Well, today that's a little bit hard.
Oh, because the information that was coming out created there, right? these platforms.
Which is totally fine. Again, as a consumer, you're informing consumers. The internet was still relatively new. This is, 15 years ago. So the internet was still relatively new. And this was a great way to educate consumers on the real estate industry.
Out there.
But on the other hand, from a real estate perspective, a lot of that information is not as clear as we'd like it to be.
Right.
And in this transaction-driven world and this, trying to create value for an agent, it's similar to the travel industry, right? When Expedia came out, people stopped going to the local travel agencies and all those travel agents closed up. Well, there's certainly travel agents out there that are still in business going like, look, people come to me because they love going to a tour that I've been to. I've been to Israel. I've been to Rome. I can tell you the restaurants to go to. You're not going to get that on Expedia. You're going to see stars for restaurants and you're going to see ones that pay for advertising and stuff like that. But some people like that and that's okay. So ultimately, the point I'm making is that like the NAR is navigating the times and the technologies, and the big last change for NAR was when we syndicated out this information. This is the next chapter of that. It's now about the agency relationship with both buyers and sellers, which is now, separated. There's still an expectation and a customary aspect that the seller is going to pay those commissions, but there could be a day when somebody comes out and says, hey, pay us per hour and we'll help you buy a home. And the analogy might be like LegalZoom. LegalZoom, was right after the OJ trial. Like everybody was like watching these newsrooms and saying, hey, I need an attorney to do this, and I'm going to fight my neighbor. I'm going to do this. And people are so intimidated by attorneys sitting down and what are they going to charge me? And like, I don't even know until I win the case if it's worth it. Right. And LegalZoom came out and said, hey, you can do all this stuff yourself. Just subscribe to us or log on and you can download what form you have. There's going to be customers out there that want that.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think that's the innovation that I think this new transition is I don't think we're no longer going to control 95% of the transactions through a real estate professional.
Right.
I think it's going to be a lot less. And there's going to be different disruptors out there that are going to accomplish that. And I think that's where the industry is going right now, to be honest with you.
And I think that, with Zillow, people can be angry about it and say that they steal business, but you can also look at it as like a tool for success. Totally. You were telling me that you guys get, what is it, double the views on Zillow for your listings that anyone else does?
Yeah, and it's funny, it's another love-hate relationship. I used to pay Zillow about $80,000 a year as an individual agent because I wanted those leads. That's where the consumer was. They own the consumer eyes. I'm like, how silly is it for me to fight them? Like if the consumer is going there on this large level, scale, like I need to advertise there. So anybody that clicked on a home in my neighborhood would get an opportunity to work with me. And I paid for that. And so that's an industry that's really evolved. Now they're taking a chunk of the commission rather than I have to pay for the zip code. Now they're taking a chunk of the commission and they're working with the better providers in those cities that can handle the volume because they had a problem with people like damaging their brand. Like they say, I'm clicking, I want to see the house, and the damn agent isn't calling me back. So they have metrics and so forth. So they've really built an incredible lead system. But you never know what you're going to get. You're going to get either a rookie agent that needed the leads because he didn't have a business of, doing this for 20 years.
And they can't fulfill.
And they can't fulfill the advocacy side of things. So, and again, there's this learning curve for consumers. Like you don't know what you don't know. So like if you're from out of state and all you know is looking at homes on Zillow and you click on the button to see it and you're talking to somebody, you're thinking that's normal. But the people that have gone through that experience and understand the advocacy element of an experienced agent and the things that come with that, they probably wouldn't be doing much on Zillow for seeing a home. They're going to call the agent that they know in the area, and they're going to ask to see the home.
And one could argue you're buying those Zillow leads, which are going to be buyer leads, right?
Typically, yeah.
So you're going to work those buyer leads at a less commission, but you're also planting seeds with a new base of clients. Totally. So like, you might work for 3 years working 20, 30 seller leads, and then 3 years later, they're all selling. Yeah. And who are they going to call?
Yeah. And it's funny because Homes.com came out, and it's a new acquisition of a very large company that bought Homes.com. Yeah. And they're simply after the consumer eye right now. And so they started buying Super Bowl ads. I mean, they're going to spend $1 billion to try to beat out Zillow from the number of consumers that look for homes on Homes.com instead of Zillow, right? Yeah. And they got the budget to do that. But then they couldn't even give me a presentation before Super Bowl because the sales guys didn't even know what was going on.
Right.
And then I sat down with them the week after Super Bowl, and they said, here's our package. I'm like, well, this sounds a lot like Zillow before they learned how to do it better. Like you're trying to bring the same value proposition to me that this company over here that's been doing it for 15 years knows a lot better. And you're starting exactly where they started. You got a lot to learn. I said, goodbye.
Yeah.
Like, it's great. You're going to get the consumer eyes, but you also have a lot to learn.
And there's going to be a lot of problems with all of it.
It's crazy for me. This little podunk guy in Palos Verdes is telling this huge organization with $1 billion budget that I can see the future. But the truth is like consumers are very educated online. And that's a good thing for the consumer. And I believe that's great for the real estate industry.
Absolutely.
But it's going to really cut out a lot of the fat.
Yeah. I mean, that's not a bad thing. There's a lot of fat right now.
Yeah.
So all that makes sense. And I think that's an interesting way to look at the our lawsuit stuff and,
optimism.
Yeah. Optimism. I mean, look, smart people find ways to win in any market.
Yeah.
So it doesn't, whatever. You're going to figure it out. Or you're not going to figure it out. And that's fine too. Go find another career. That's okay. Yeah. One of the things that you guys...
That's not an option, by the way.
What was that?
Failure is not an option.
Not for you guys. I mean, I think for others is...
No, as a matter of fact, and I'm sorry to kind of spin off on this. Maybe that's my ADD, but like my wife and I were just talking on the car ride down here. Like my daughter called me from school yesterday crying because she had studied so hard at what she thought was really hard for her test. And she got a C on it. Like, that would have been amazing for me, by the way. But because she's got high standards and, she called up and she said, I can't finish school today. I'm so upset. And, come pick me up. And here I am just melting because like, it's my daughter. Like, of course, I'm going to rescue her anytime.
Sure.
And I said, sweetie, I can't pick you up. I can't do this. You need to learn. You need to learn what it means to kind of fail and how to grow from that. That's what you have to do.
Pick yourself back up?
And she hung up on me. Later that night, I had to have that conversation on how much it would like really hurt me.
Yeah.
Like, not hurt me emotionally, but like to have her have to go through that experience. But that's life. Like she's in Accardo. Like the reality is you learn the most when you're on the ground hurting the most. You got to learn how to get up.
Right.
And I think that's what this industry is going through right now is a good purge of the people that are strong and are going to bring value to the table versus the people that just are down and they can't get up.
Right.
And so I'm excited about that.
No, it's part of the game.
Yeah.
Winners win.
Yeah.
Last question. You and Marina have kind of talked about this before in other videos, but why is it advantageous for young people to move every couple years when you're buying houses?
Several things.
Not just move, but why is it advantageous to sell every couple years?
It's really about building it's like building a wealth strategy, right? I think when you're young and you've got the hourly job and, you go from a point, at least I did. I went from a point of living paycheck to paycheck with debt to finally paying off debt and finally recognizing that storing money is a really good thing to do.
Absolutely.
Right? Less stress, like in the down times. You have the option to get a deal on something, when it comes on the market. And I was always into cars, and I can get a deal on a car because I had the cash and didn't have to finance it, right? And the first time I bought a home, I saw the value of that home continue to go up while I made this fixed payment that was a lot more than rent, right? But I saw the value of my home go up. All of a sudden, my wealth ballooned, and it was in real estate.
Right.
So from the early on stages of me, and I think a lot of people, real estate leads the way to wealth.
Right.
And the way you do that is you hang on to the house and you grow equity. Well, one of the best tricks you know, as you look at the Warren Buffetts of the world that talk about money management and so forth. One of the best tricks in the book is not paying taxes.
Yeah.
Horrible to say because obviously we all have to pay our fair share. But the truth is there's tax codes out there that incentivize consumers to do certain actions. And one of them is selling your home every couple of years. And the incentive is there to try to, from a government level, try to get people to pay higher property taxes. Every time you sell, the house is worth more. It's going to pay more property taxes, feeds the system.
Right.
But they're giving that person the ability to make $250,000 tax-free when you sell it. So the example is if you buy a house for $1 million and in 2 years you sell it for $250,000, that's all yours. You don't have to pay taxes on it.
Right.
And if you were to try, and back in the day, I remember like if I was to try to earn $250,000, that's like 3 years of wages at whatever, 80 grand a year in order to bank up $250,000. But guess what? I was working 2 jobs simultaneously. I got all that money up front and it was tax free. It was amazing.
Right.
Once you're married, that could be $500,000.
Right.
So if you're young and you don't have this, need for the home to be other than a great place to live and a place to enjoy, that you don't need it long term, whether like you're in school. Like right now, my wife and I, we're not moving. We're in a great school system. We're in a great neighborhood. Like there's no reason for us to move.
Right.
But we got there after several trades of being young, taking that $250,000 of tax free and moving on to the next. And now our wealth portfolio in real estate has grown to the level to buy a bigger house. You have more equity. You can start diversifying some of your cash flow because your house payments is less. So it's young people should look at real estate leading their way to savings and wealth.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And of course, the tax thing is a pretty nice benefit.
Absolutely. Well, if you could believe it, it's been 50 minutes.
I can't believe it.
We kicked some ass. Tony Accardo.
Yeah.
Where do people find you? Where can people find you on Instagram?
To listen to more boring shit.
No, listen to more, like, this was all fascinating. The NAR, I mean, for the right audience, anything's interesting, right?
No, I get it. And I think you do such a great job of like preparing your studio and obviously building a platform where people are logged on. So for us, we've built a brand, and our brand is mostly on the Instagram. Yep. On the Instagram. I sound like
on the Instagram.
On the old dude, right?
Yeah.
So it's Accardo_real estate.
Boom, baby.
And, you know, we integrate a lot of our personality into that because we feel that's more valuable to our audience than just talking about boring real estate or showing beautiful homes. Like that's all great. That's all eye candy. But I think for us, it's about living our life, our best life, living by example. And social media, I've got a love-hate relationship with it. You know that. You see me here in the studio.
Yep.
And it's where we live, and I enjoy it. I enjoy the feedback we get. If you're not doing it in real estate, you're really missing the mark. So,
all right. Well, there you have it.
Yeah.
All right, man. Well, we'll have to have you back on and talk more about the NAR stuff as more shakes out, and we'll just keep rocking and rolling.
Fun shit. We'll talk about the turtles.
Yeah. The turtle. Oh my gosh.
We missed a lot of content.
I love your guys' turtle. No, there's more personal stuff to talk about.
Okay, cool. We'll do it.